Hiya. Um, Today I'm going to talk about depression. The reason, and just living through it, surviving it. The reason why I decided to do this is because I've seen quite a few videos people talking about depression, how they went through it. Um, but I also, because of the situation with COVID. A lot of people obviously stuck inside. People on their own are stuck inside, especially over the Christmas period. That would have been particularly bad for people. There's a lot of single people out there, a lot of lonely people out there that suffer with depression, and this is the time where we really got to look after these sort of people. This is the sort of time where they could commit suicide or do something harmful to themselves. So I thought I would talk about how I suffered through depression, and where I am now. So, um, you know, depression is an interesting topic. Um, there is a lot of information out there. You can find out, understand it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that do not understand it and are very ignorant when it comes to, or naive about it. Um, it's like some of the common things I've heard where, why don't you just be happy? Just cheer up. That's the most stupidest comment I've ever heard. That's the same along the same lines of when you tell someone that's really fat or morbidly obese, oh, why don't you just stop eating? Like it's that easy. If it was that easy, they wouldn't be fat. So yeah, that shit doesn't work. It's very much where your brain is very much a powerful tool, a powerful machine, a powerful computer. It can also be, it can be your best friend. Also, for some people, it can also be their worst enemy. First time I ever came across depression, funny enough, or as far as I was concerned anyway, was when I was 16. Um, I'd heard of it, didn't know anything about it. I was very ignorant when it came to that. I didn't understand how it worked. I didn't understand how you could be depressed. Especially if you've got an okay life, or, unless you're being, abused or something, why would you be depressed? And I was working at the Blue Cross. It was when I was 16. I was working at the Blue Cross, rescue kennels. To this day, still my most favourite job ever. Um, and we used to have two dogs that lived together in the kennels, and they were there. They were never for rehoming, but they were there for several months at a time. And then they'd disappear for a while, and then for a few months, and then they came back. And then eventually found out why this was happening, why they weren't for rehoming. They actually belonged to someone, this woman, who suffered from depression. And I, bear in mind, this is a long time ago. This is well over 20 years ago, so I generally don't remember the full detail. I'm only going by my memory. But she used to, when it used to get too bad, she'd rehome. Well, she'd bring the dogs in to be looked after. Now, this is where I'm not sure because I didn't get massive information, but this is, I think, either she used to give them to us so she could have a break because she couldn't cope, or she used to go away somewhere like a centre just to try and get back on form. Um, I only guess that's got to be the thing because I know when I've gone through depression, particularly when I've had bad times, my two beautiful dogs called Bess and Gemma, um, at the time, unfortunately, they died a long time ago, but I used to always go to them, and they used to always cheer me up. So yeah, I'm surprised. So I'm guessing that might be the case, or maybe it just got so bad she became suicidal. I don't really know much about it, but like a lot of people, I was very naive. I didn't understand how you be so depressed. I don't get it. I couldn't understand it. Then, uh, about 2 years later, something like that, maybe when I was 18, so I got diagnosed with depression. Did not know that was what it was. I just didn't feel right. I was working for a painting company in Clumpton. I didn't feel just. I can't even remember how I used to feel actually, but I know I didn't feel right, lacking in energy, and and I and I used to struggle with sleeping. I remember my mum took me to the doctors, and I was diagnosed with depression, and I was given antidepressants, which were the worst things I could ever have. They didn't work for me. They just made it worse. They made me very sleepy, very lackluster. I had no energy, and it affected my job. And in the end, I didn't even finish the course. I came off them because it just made me worse. I felt even more depressed. Um, but yeah, so that's the basic thing. And I apologise. This video is going to be quite long, but I feel I need to give you the backstory and where I feel it started to where I am now. Now, I had a great upbringing. My mum and dad were brilliant. Typical sibling rivalry, my brother. But yeah, my parents were brilliant. I had a great upbringing, no doubt about it. And it was nothing to do with what they did or what they didn't do. It was down to the fact that it started. I think it started when, as far as I can remember, maybe when I was 6 or 7, is probably the first sign to. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know what it was. And my first primary school I remember being at was at Hazelmere at Roberts Ride, that area anyway. And I used to have, as far as I remember having a group of friends, being in a little gang. It was pretty cool. Then we moved from that school to Bledlow Ridge, and that was the first time we realised my reading and writing and spelling, well, basically the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetics, was bad. It really was bad. And I suffered my first humiliation there. I went to class 2 or year 2, I can't remember, when we first joined the school. And I think at that point my brother was in the top year, or maybe a year below. I don't know, I can't remember, because obviously he's 3 years older than me. And within a week or so, they realised I was bad. This is when it came out. This is where it really came out that I was bad. And I got put down to class 1. And that was humiliating because I was the oldest kid in the class. And I remember that to this day. Yeah, so that was the start. But I didn't know that was the start. As the years went on, obviously, I had to move up in years because of my age, but I didn't. My reading and writing was terrible. Spelling was bad, reading was bad, writing wasn't much better. At a certain point, my writing got better when I was practicing, but my spelling and reading was terrible. And it messed with my self-confidence. I didn't have so many friends there. I got picked on a few times. I got picked on at Roberts Ride. That was a violent one, but this one I got bullied on. But I will give my brother his due. Even though he used to beat me up, he'd beat anybody else up but beat me up. Because as far as he was concerned, he was the only person who was going to beat me up was him. So it's a bit of a messed up one that is, but and then, yeah, that was the start of my self-confidence going down. And because I couldn't read books, which kind of made it very hard to get into things. I struggled with computers. I didn't understand computers. And of course, then everybody's going up. Starting to get, at the time you're talking about ZX Spectrums, Commodore 64s, all that. And, people were reading, there was game books, these cool game books that were coming out. And everybody was into them. But because I didn't understand it, I couldn't do it, I was left behind. So I had less and less friends, which meant I comfort ate. I started eating more and more. Then we moved to Somerset, when I was about 10, I think, to the pub, which I thought, me and my brother thought, yeah, like old kids, everything's great, we're going to live in a pub. That is amazing. Yeah, it's not so good. Not so good. I don't recommend it. I do not recommend it. We were there for 5 years in Somerset. I then got lonely there because by then my confidence was bad, my weight was going up. I didn't have any conversation with people. I couldn't talk to people because I wasn't into what these guys were doing. All my other kids, all my people my age, they could talk. They're into sports. They're into this. They're into that. A lot of them had Sky at the time, which wasn't massively common, but we didn't have Sky. I think because of our house, it was an old house, we weren't allowed to have Sky. And at that point, I think my parents didn't think what was the point of it. So, you had things like, what's it called? The Simpsons and wrestling and all that was very, it was all coming out there and it was all big. So yeah, I couldn't connect with anybody. I had about 1 or 2 friends in the first couple of years of school, which meant I was eating more. And on top of that, I was reading and writing. But it was then we finally discovered I had dyslexia. And so that was the first start of help. I got taken out of French lessons, and went into that. And it helped me along. It did improve me. It got me to understand phonics a bit more. But yeah, so that it was very hard to mix with my friends, mix with people, connect them. It wasn't until the 5th year, I think, I started making more friends. I don't know why. I don't know why that year I seemed to get more friends, but it still wasn't a massive amount. Best thing for me was leaving school and going to work. That was a better time. I mixed better with adults than I did with my own age. Kind of learning and that. But I still was eating a lot. Very much. When we moved to the post office in Devon, I met my oldest friend, a very good friend. We were best mates for a long, long, long time. Unfortunately, we've drifted apart now. So, anyway, yeah, that was. Anyway, so I went to start working for Quarantine Kennels, not Quarantine, so Blue Cross, because I actually tried to train as a mechanic, and it didn't work. Well, I got to electrics and I couldn't understand it. It was just too hard, and unfortunately, the college wasn't taking in the fact that I was dyslexic. But it was at that point I decided to do something about my dyslexia, and I joined. At that time, they were doing adult literacy centre. I could go and join for free. That was probably the biggest help. That helped me a lot more. My reading improved a lot more, a lot better. My spelling was still not brilliant, but it did improve my reading, which helped. I could read a lot more. That was probably the best education I had. But anyway, yeah, I pulled out of college, because once we got to electrics, I struggled. I didn't understand it. Went into quarantine. I went to the Blue Cross. So I met another good friend, who is my oldest friend now. A guy called Ron. I met him when I was 16. I'm now coming up to 44, so it tells you how long we've been friends for. Good man. He's taught me a lot over the years. But yeah, it was a good help. He was a good guy in Blue Cross. Anyway, I left there. When I left there because the first year was awesome. To this day, was my favourite time I always look forward to going there. But I left there in the end because all the guys were there. They'd left. Ron had left. I can't remember the other guys now. I think it was Neil or something. He'd gone. And a very good manageress had gone. And it was just these women against me. And bear in mind, at this point, I'm 17. I don't know what side of the bed to piss on. I kind of got torn apart by them. Yeah, so I didn't enjoy that, and I think the depression was starting to kick in then. I then started working for a painting factory in Clumpton, and then that was a good lesson, because then I met with a lot of lads. I've been with women all this time, so I've now met with these lads that are very boisterous. So it was good education, and it was the last job I went to where you didn't squeal on people, you didn't grass on people. You had an issue, you dealt with it. You had a punch up, and after the punch up, that was it. The next day you're probably drinking with the guy. That was a good time. That was a good lesson. I also met another guy there, funny enough, another good mate who's unfortunately we drifted apart. A guy called Barry. Yeah, so from then on, I wanted to get back into I left the Blue Cross. I wanted to get back into animal care. That was where my love was. I got the chance to go back into kennels near Oakhampton, right on Dartmoor, quarantine kennel, which turned out was not the best idea I did. Quarantine kennels and rescue kennels are very different. Rescue kennels, you have all different types of dogs and cats from different backgrounds. I loved that because it made you think. You didn't have the same animals. You didn't have all trained animals. You didn't have lovely animals. Some had issues, being beaten up or whatever. Where and you could walk them, take them out in the woods, whatever. But you could not do that with quarantine kennels. Once they were in there for 6 months. They couldn't leave that kennel. And obviously you get stressed and on top of that stress, there was where the kennels were, there was unfortunately, even though it was in the middle of nowhere, I think there was one particular neighbour that the owners had fallen out with, and they'd complained a lot about the noise, and they now had a noise restraint on the place, so we had to keep it down, keep them quiet all the time, which is very hard when you've got dogs that are in a cage for 6 months. It is prison. So there was that added stress, the stress on me to try and keep them quiet. I kind of changed there. I didn't like how it would be sometimes with some of the animals. I'd be more vocally violent towards, not physically, but vocally, which I didn't like. But also on top of that, I was taken advantage of. I lived there. I lived in a caravan there, which in the summer is great. In the winter, not so good. Been on Dartmoor, and it was an old caravan. It was cool. I liked living in it, but it was an old caravan, and this is how bad it was. Bear in mind, I'm on Dartmoor, right? Take that in count. When in the winter, I would wake up in the morning and the ice would be on the inside of the window. That's how cold it got. Toughened you up though. Toughened me up. But they only employed 3 people. They had 2 kennels. You had the quarantine kennel and the show dog kennels, which was up near the house. And it was run by a family. Mum, the mother, the old girl was the mother, the son, and their best mate who lived there as well, with his daughter, a divorced person. When I first joined there, my job was to look after the dog side of the quarantine kennels. Someone came in during the week to do the cat side, and then on the weekend I had to deal with the cats as well. And then you had another guy, another full-timer, who worked up at the show dog end. And bear in mind, like I said, they employed 2 full-timers and 1 part-timer. Yeah, it was. Even though she was there, the girl was there 5 times a week. It was only in the morning till lunchtime, so it was part-time. In the end, in a year of me being there, they went through 15 members of staff. That's how crap it was. He took advantage of me because I was stuck there. I didn't have any vehicle. In the end, I was supposed to get a day and a half off. That was okay at the beginning, and then I lost the half days, and I was just getting a day off. So I purposely Mum used to pick me up that night, the night before, take me home, so I could just get out of the situation. Because when I stayed there, he would take advantage of that. The guy would take advantage of that. I wasn't strong-willed enough. And yeah, he would take advantage of that by, oh, can you just go in and do this? I'm busy. Can you please just go do? And it would happen all the time. And he would ask me. You asked me once, why do you keep going home? You don't, because I said you get me to work. I said you won't leave me alone. He said, I will leave you here. You can't stay here. I thought, all right, I'll try it once. First time, yeah, it was okay. Second time I did it, it happened again. I started working. Oh, yeah. So in the end, my mum said, just come home. We'll pick you up, take you home, get you out of it, because I was getting depressed. By now, also, bear in mind, and this was before minimum wage, I was getting paid, I don't know, about £67 for the week. I mean, I know working in kennels is crap money, but even that was crap then. I ended up, which was getting to me, I was getting depressed through that. And then they got to a point where they were really losing staff. And I pretty much, apart from one part-timer, it was just me. And this is where they started really taking advantage of me. I would occasionally, they said, because they're short of staff, like, when you finish, can you just come up to the rescue, the show dog side, and just help us see if anything needs doing. So I thought, okay. Anyway, once in a while I'd go up there and there's something you'd be doing. It was like maybe feeding. And then it became all the time. To the point that I would like purposely finish later in the quarantine kennel, maybe 5:30, and just got there. Nothing, the same thing I had to do. Feeding needed doing and cleaning up the kennel. And the other guy would just be coming to, they purposely just stopped doing those work. It became my job. So in the end, I was working about 70 hours a week for pretty much £68, which really sucked. And it got so bad. Oh, and they moved me, bear in mind, they did do one decent thing. They moved me out just to help me out, because they knew I was suffering with depression. My depression was getting really, really bad. Very self-loathing. Had massive issues with my self-loathingness, and I'll give him his due. The boss had suffered depression himself, so he knew what it was like. He moved me out of the caravan and moved me into their spare room to help me out, which is great. It was a very generous thing to do, but they did at the same time take advantage of me, and they can't. Basically it was quite regular. I'd be doing between 65 and 70 hours a week. It just got, and I became so withdrawn, so depressed, that the only way I can describe it is being in a dark room, a big dark room, pitch black room, no lights, and I could not see a way out. That's the only way I can describe it. It's been in a very dark room and cannot see my way out of this place. And one night we were having dogs that were due to give birth, so we had to take turns sleeping in the kennels. I ended up sleeping in the kennels with the dog, and I'd hit rock bottom, and there was a book, and I was just writing something, and I wrote, and I knew at that point, if I'd had something like a weapon or drugs, I would have taken my life. I could see no light, couldn't see any door, couldn't see any hatchway of getting out of this place. I was in a pitch black room. That's the only way I can describe it. And I could not see any way out of it. I thought my life was worthless. I thought I was a very ugly man, an ugly fat man who was very stupid. So yeah, I think it finally came to head when I'd always been told to book my holidays. If I wanted a holiday, book it in advance. I booked my Christmas holiday 3 months in advance. Wasn't an issue. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, leading up to Christmas, they kept saying to me, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing for this Christmas and all this?" And I said, "Oh, I will need you to do this next week." And I'd taken 2 weeks off, if I remember rightly, a week before Christmas and a week after. And I suddenly realised they had forgotten, even though you'd written it in the book, they'd forgotten that I'd booked this holiday. And I stupidly turned around to them and said to one of them, "So I can't do that. You know I'm not here, right? I'm not here." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I booked my holiday off three months ago. I'm not going to be here for 2 weeks." That night, my boss comes to me and says, "Oh, I'm afraid I'm going to have to cancel your holiday because I've got to have an operation." And I knew it was a lie, but there was nothing I could do. By then, mentally I was weak. I was just a weak person. Didn't have this backbone to do anything. He said, "I'll give you 3 days off," I think it was. And that was it. That just peaked out. I couldn't do it anymore. He didn't have the operation. He just didn't want to work. He didn't want to do the work. I came back, never did have the operation. Anyway, eventually, I never thought I was going to get out. I got out, managed to hand my notice in. I started working for the same company as my brother, and just things like that. That was my darkest point. That was my deepest, darkest point where I nearly took my life, and I would have. The only thing stopped it was I had nothing to take my life with. From that moment on, I decided I would never get to that level. Now, I have suffered depression. Once you get to that level, you never fully get rid of it. You will never get fully rid of it. You can control it if you can get strong enough. I think you need to get to that level to make sure you don't get down there again. You can't stop getting depressed, but you can control how deep it goes, how you can get better. I had a long time where it took a long time for me to think that I'm okay in the looks department. I thought I was fat, I thought I was ugly, I thought nobody would fancy me. And I ended up just having lots of female friends because I was easy to talk to. I was a good listener. Unfortunately, I found out later on that a lot of people thought I was gay. And when I think about it, I understand that because, yeah, yeah, I'm not surprised. A lot of people thought, there was quite a few people I found out later on thought I was gay. I wasn't. I just had minus zero, confidence in my looks. I generally thought I was repulsive. I generally thought no woman would fancy me. I thought I was that bad. And on top of that, still having issues with reading and writing. The next time I suffered deep depression was when I had my bike accident. I had the accident when I was 19, late 19, going into 20. I was off for 8 months from the bike accident. That put me in a deep depression. Really struggled with that. But I got through it, got out of it, started training, started improving my life, started getting into powerlifting. My mate got me into powerlifting, that was Ron. Started doing well there, started competing. Unfortunately, I didn't have good enough guidance at the beginning, and my education on training wasn't as good. That I injured myself, unbeknown to me. I had done damage to myself in the early years of not lifting properly. Later on, I learned how to do it properly, but I'd done the damage. And went from powerlifting. I even almost got into the British Championships. I even almost got into the British team, but I just lost out due to injuries. Jumped over to strongman, which is where I always wanted to get to. Growing up watching people like Jeff Cates, Bill Kazmaier, all that, Paul Samuelson. So yeah, that was where I wanted to be. I wanted to be British strongest man. That was the goal for me, and I got the opportunity through other people to start doing that, and it was starting to go well. I was determined to try and do as far as I can without drugs. I'd never taken drugs in all my competing life. I never ever took drugs. It was all natural. Unfortunately, when I started doing really, really well, I got to a point where I could pick up a car, deadlift a car. So and it was a Mondeo, if I remember rightly. So it shows you how strong and how well I was doing. I had a future. And then nature kicked in. I literally, overnight, that was my career. I lived it. I trained 6 days a week. I lived and breathed this thing. That's all I cared about. That's all I wanted to be. Britain's strongest man. British strongest man. And no, literally overnight, bang, it got stopped. I kept getting injuries from my back, and then my shoulder. I went from like log lifting. I think my best log lift is about 100 kilos. I went from there, from that to not even being able to lift a bar up. It became so painful. And it turns out I'd worn out the rotational cup in my shoulder and done some tendon damage. And I was told if I carried on the way I was going, I would eventually have to have a big operation, which would have really ended it. So I had to finish it. I still, after I had cortisone injection, and I still started doing stuff because it's very hard to come off that. It's an addiction. What eventually finally killed it, I was watching 40 Years of Pain, World's Strongest Man. It was the 40th anniversary. And Bill Kazmaier has a permanent hole in his chest muscle from tearing it so many times. I was doing the same thing to my back. And that scared me. I thought, I cannot have a permanent hole in my back muscle. That will put me in a wheelchair. That stopped it. That finally finished it off. It took me 6 years to get over that. I really struggled with depression over that. And I generally thought I was weak at that point. I couldn't, I found it very, very hard to get over that. I found out later on, and years on, and I keep finding out, some of the top professional guys, and I'm talking like, the kings of this stuff, like bodybuilders, what's the English bodybuilder? I can't remember his name. Like 6 times the Olympia, strong men, even Olympic champions, all when they've retired, all gone through the same thing. They go through dark depression because all of a sudden you're having to stop what you've been striving for such a long time, and then to suddenly just stop. And it kind of helped. It helped because you realise I wasn't weak. It's the fact that all athletes go through that. I don't know if I had it worse or better that I didn't get up the top and then stop, but then I was stopped in my prime. So yeah. But I still go through depression to this day, but I don't get it all the time. I have ups and I have downs, but I've never been that deep again. Not since that kennel was my worst one. And I just won't let myself go. I have bad times, don't get me wrong. I go through it, but I know the signs now. I recognise the signs when they're coming. It doesn't sneak up on me as much as it used to. Even coming to Beijing, first year was very, very hard. Very hard. I was told it would take a minimum of 6 months up to a year to get used to Beijing. That is true, especially if you're not used to going to an Asian country. That is massively true. It took me a year to get used to it. I suffered badly from homesickness, which I never thought I'd feel. I think it is harder leaving at 39. It's definitely a young person's thing. Because I think don't get me wrong, I've been around Europe, I've been holidays, different. I've been outside the country, but I've never lived anywhere but England. So I had 39 years of England. So to suddenly come from that to this, at my age, I don't recommend it. But if you're strong enough, it will pay off. It does pay off. I've changed. I'm not the same person when I came here. Yvonne's the same. But yeah. So people that are suffering out there, you're not weak. For the people who think just who believes, oh, why are you depressed? Just cheer up. It doesn't work like that. It's a mental thing. It's a mental health issue. It really is. You know, you cannot just, your mind will tell you that you are worthless, or, you know, you shouldn't be happy. Your mind is so powerful. Sometimes you can do anything you like, and, you know, to try and cheer you up. And yeah, you'll be happy for that moment, but then it will just go down again. Elvis, King of the World, notoriously suffered from depression. He constantly surrounded himself with people because he felt very lonely. So for those who do suffer from it, you're not weak. Where you're weak, if you give in to it and you commit suicide, that is when you're weak. And granted, that's not an easy thing to beat, because I've been there. Like I said, I nearly took my life. You generally, for people that think that people that take their lives are selfish, all I say to you guys is, you only think that because you haven't been there. When you're there, you generally think, your mind tells you that there is nowhere else out. You will not do better. You cannot do better. You can only get worse, and you shouldn't be here. And people will be better off without you. That's how your mind will tell you. So for you guys that say that it's jealous, you know, you're selfish. It's selfish maybe where they do it, like on the motorway or on a line of a railway track. That is selfish because it messes up. Or people that do it right in front of people, like jump off a multi-story car park and it lands in front of someone or even hits their vehicle. That's selfish because you're messing up with someone else. You're bringing their life into it. You're messing their life up. But taking your life is not because you're weak. Your mind just takes over from you. So for the ones that say that you're selfish, please understand, when you're in that state, you are not thinking straight. Trust me on this. Like I said, the only reason I didn't take my life was there was nothing for me to use. Okay? So please understand that when you say this next time. They don't think there is any way out. But trust me, guys, there is always a way out. Be strong. Don't try and fight. You know, whatever your mind tells you, just fight back. Fight back. There is always someone that will help you. There's always someone that will miss you. And there is always a way out. It's not a fast thing, but you can do it. And just don't give in. Just get stronger. Do something differently. Try anything. Trust me on this. Anyway, sorry for the long video. I genuinely hope this helped you guys. And you know, like I said, look after those people that are struggling with it. And I hope a lot of people get to see this. Please help subscribe on my video. Please help like this video, and please share it just to get it out there. I'm only on 20 subscribers at the moment. I need to get it out there. So sorry about the long video. I hope to help. See you later. Bye.